The rumor mill is spinning round and round as we get to the end of the week. We'll go through all of it as the Paul George door opens pretty wide. And we ask ourselves if Jalen Suggs is the answer all along. That and a whole lot more on today's episode of Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is June 20th. It will be June 21st, 2024. Happy solstice to those who celebrate. My name is Philip Rosenreich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. Belated happy Juneteenth, too. I should not have forgotten that one either. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, a busy Thursday. Lots of rumors flying around. We got one in the morning. We got one the day before, and we got a big one later in the afternoon. How the Philadelphia 76ers souring on Paul George affects the Orlando Magic. We're going to talk about that. Plus, why Jalen Suggs might be the answer all along. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for. The Locked On Podcast Network, it's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for first deposit match of up to $100. I could do some flowery intro, but there's no beating around the bush. At about 5 o'clock Eastern time on Thursday, Shams Charania reported, quote, the Philadelphia 76ers' interest in pursuing Paul George has significantly waned in recent days, and the franchise is expected to be aggressive elsewhere with its salary cap flexibility and draft capital leading into next week's NBA draft, sources tell The Athletic and Stadium. That's a mouthful. People are taking it to mean the Sixers are out on Paul George. I am not, but at least the reporting that is out there would suggest that Philadelphia, long suspected to be the favorite to land Paul George, the favorite to get him, the team that would be in the best position to offer the kind of contract that Paul George is looking for, something more than what the Clippers gave to Kawhi Leonard, that they are now the favorites, or that they're no longer the favorites to land him. And look, there are not a lot of teams that can pay for Paul George. And the Magic have been the only other team connected to Paul George. It's always been, he's not happy with the contract the Clippers are giving him. The Clippers want him to sign the same deal that Kawhi Leonard signed, which let me make sure I get that number correct here. So Kawhi Leonard, I actually wrote it down. A 3-year, $152.4 million contract that kicks in next year is an extension on top of that. That is a very high average. The Clippers appear not to want to go above that. The Magic cannot offer that kind of money. They're not giving out a $50 million contract. That's not what they want to do. And it's also more than the max the Magic can give, if I'm not mistaken. But this seems to open that door for Paul George to become an Orlando Magic player, to be on the Magic's radar once again. All of our widely held assumptions about what the Paul George market would be like have now completely changed. Or maybe they haven't. I would argue that this is probably the Sixers trying to play a little hardball with Paul George, or Paul George's agent trying to nudge the Sixers in the direction of, hey, give him his money. He's going to look elsewhere. You're not going to get him. All that side-eyeing that Joel Embiid did. Or it's the Sixers saying you're asking for too much, Paul. Back off. We're still we're a week away from actually having to deal with all this stuff and negotiations actually beginning. It's hard to know. It's hard to know anything. This to me does still feel like a giant smokescreen. But having said that, there's a real issue here. And the issue is, well, where's Paul George going to end up? What is Paul George looking like? Because at the end of the day, the Magic the Magic, the Sixers, the Clippers, they're going to offer Paul George whatever he wants, whatever he's going to get. I believe the Magic are limited to offering 25% of the cap, which is about a contract starting at $35 million a year, which the Magic can certainly offer. The question is, again, whether that's the right move to make, whether that is the right decision. Again, Paul George is looking, he's opting out of a $38 million contract. It's, I was talking with a couple buddies that do salary cap stuff, and they're thinking it might be smarter for Paul George to accept his player option, not hit free agency, and either negotiate an extension with the Clippers, or get trade or force his way out, or say, hey, I'm going to pick up my option, trade me somewhere, that way I can retain my bird rights and, compound my salary rather than kind of start over again at $35 million, which is, I believe, what he would have to do in this circumstance, because the Magic can't offer him more than the max. You're able to go above the max, or above the 25% max, if you're using bird rights, if you to put more years onto an existing contract. The Magic aren't doing that, so I believe they are limited in what they can offer him at the end of the day. This is all coming off the heels of another item of note. On Paul George's Podcast P, the host asked him who are the best players under 25, and Paul George specifically mentioned Paolo Banchero. We are on the radar, people. He said, he was asked essentially, what would you do to maximize Paolo Banchero? And Paul George said on the podcast, surround him with shooting. Well, I know a free agent wing who's an excellent shooter, and it's one of the skills that he's really good at. As I mentioned in my Case for and Against Paul George podcast last week, there is no basketball reason for the Magic not to pursue Paul George. Like, I'll be perfectly honest. There is no basketball reason for the Magic to pass on Paul George. He is an excellent three-point shooter. He is an excellent defender. He can get hot when he wants to. He can hit from the mid-range. He can hit jumpers. But he's also pretty content and pretty happy to work off the ball and not be the star. In fact, that is something that he has kind of said specifically, that he's not looking to be the superstar, to be the all-star. He wants to be paid like one, but he's not looking to be the main guy. He wants to be a supporting character. And I think that is something that's really, really important for the Magic. So I would say this. All the events that happened today, I have gone from very skeptical that the Magic would chase Paul George to at least my interest has peaked a little bit. Or at least saying like, maybe it could happen. Now, I am just generally skeptical the Magic are going to do anything super crazy. And maybe this qualifies as super crazy, or maybe this is just me being a little afraid or thinking too long-term here, knowing that, again, there is no basketball reason not to pursue Paul George. He is exactly what the Magic need in so many ways. A volume three-point shooter, a great creator and scorer, someone that can ease the burden. And yeah, the Magic have some pieces that could take pressure off of him too. He can play the two guard next to Jalen Suggs. We'll get to Suggs here in a minute. But yeah, like, he would make sense. He would make a lot of sense to me. The questions always come down to, do you trust the injury history and his health? And do you trust the length of that contract? Are you willing to pay what he's asking for? And again, if I'm not mistaken, the Magic are indeed limited to that 25% of the cap. In fact, I will scramble here and try and figure this out for you. He can receive 35%. He's a 10. I think he's a 10 plus years in the league now at this point. So let me I'm sorry. I'm researching here while I'm on camera, which isn't professional and isn't good. I believe he's 10 plus years. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So he could get 35% of the cap. So his max salary is $49.4 million, which that's all of the Magic's cap room. They're not going to spend all of their cap room on him. And again, he's declining a player option of about $48 million. So I have personally believed that the cost is probably not worth it. The Magic have some other needs they need to fill. They have some other things they need to accomplish. It's a very short-sighted thing, but there aren't many teams that are going to be chasing Paul George. And so if he is looking for that last big payday, if he's looking for that opportunity, the Magic are a really good chance. Now, again, like I've said, I think Paul George, and to some extent Klay Thompson, and there's Jake Fisher of Yahoo Sports reporting that that he's heard that he believes that the Magic would only offer Klay Thompson the 2-year balloon payment, similar to what the Magic did with Joe Ingles. Give him a 2-year, $70 million contract with, team option or some non-guarantees on that second year. Give themselves a really easy out. For me personally, I don't think that's the path the Magic should go this summer. I think there are some players that I might do that for. I've joked around with a few people and floated it out to a few people that I kind of get the feeling the Magic might pull a Bruce Brown with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, give him like a 2-year, I don't want to say 50, but like 2-year, $45 million contract, give themselves an out with that second year and then use them the same way that the Pacers use Bruce Brown. I don't think the Magic want to go that route, but it wouldn't surprise me if they do. Klay Thompson would be the extreme end of doing that. Maybe they do that, but I think Klay Thompson's looking for a long-term deal, one last long-term deal to kind of cement himself. And again, I still think he ultimately stays with Golden State. Paul George, you're given a 4-year deal to. And the question is, do you buy that? Do you want to make that investment? Do you want to commit pretty much your entire cap space to him? That was always my concern with Paul George. There is no basketball reason not to pursue Paul George. And with the news that Shams Charania is reporting, that door definitely feels much more open. So, why are we talking about a wing? I thought the Magic needed a point guard. Well, there's some reporting to suggest that the Magic don't feel they need a point guard. Why Jalen Suggs might be the answer the Magic needed all along. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word from our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with more than 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 players. 2 to 6 players stat projections. So will Caitlin Clark score more than 20 points? Will Angel Reese get more than 12 rebounds? And watch the winnings roll in. Get on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. Here in Florida, you do have to play the peer-to-peer version of the game, I believe, just because of the laws here in the state, but you still get the same action, the same idea, the same simplicity that you get from PrizePicks. With PrizePicks, you can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. And with the finals over, the hoops action does not stop. Women's basketball is still heating up. Baseball is going on. We still got the Stanley Cup final going on. There's still so many ways to win, and you can win up to 100 times your cash watching them all ball out. PrizePicks is the daily fantasy game that I play. I love its simplicity. I love that there's no confusing salary cap. It's just straightforward, you and the numbers. And then obviously in Florida here, we have a different kind of PrizePicks game as opposed to the one that you might get in some other states. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA for first deposit match of up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONNBA on PrizePicks for a deposit match of up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. For your next listen, be sure to check out the Locked On Sports Day 24/7 streaming channel. Get the latest and greatest from all the big stories in sports from local experts who know their team best. You're not getting uninformed hot takes or national people dropping in who don't know what they're talking about or people just trying to make noise. You get local experts who care about their teams, know their teams inside out, giving you the best information and, yes, the best analysis that you can find anywhere. Check it out today. Locked On Sports Today brings all of that together on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, again, let's caution everything that we're talking about today because we're talking about rumors. And as we know, the Magic don't leak anything. Honestly, a lot of us have stopped trying. We will hear from Jeff Weltman next week, obviously around the draft, but the Magic are not a team that likes to do a lot of negotiating or business through the media. There are GMs that like that strategy. The Magic are not one of them. And so a lot of this stuff feels like dot connecting, feels like speculation. We'll see what the Magic ultimately do next weekend. And obviously it's coming up pretty quick here. So we will see what they end up doing. We have gotten a few nuggets of information, at least some nuggets of speculation. The latest one comes from our friend Matt Moore over at the Action Network. who reports the Magic may have changed their ideas of what they're looking for. The Magic have been in pursuit of point guards in the past. Matt Moore reported that they were in on Fred VanVleet, Chris Paul, or Kyle Lowry over the last few years. I've heard other reporters I trust tell me that they had heard the Kyle Lowry thing last year as well. And we all assume, especially after watching them in the playoffs, that the Magic are looking for a point guard, are looking for playmakers, are looking for someone to help set the table for Paolo Banchero. Paolo Banchero said that himself, that's what he wanted to do. But it appears now the Magic may be pivoting a little bit, as Moore puts it, that the Magic may be looking more at the shooting guard market in this year's free agent class. And look, some of that might just have to do with the market itself. The point guards on the free agent market, we're looking at Tyus Jones and D'Angelo Russell. And is D'Angelo Russell really a point guard? I don't know. We went over them in detail. We went over the pros and cons of going after them. There are reasons to, there are reasons not to. Tyus Jones just, to me, doesn't fit the style of point guard the Magic like, despite his offensive prowess and really just a solid play. D'Angelo Russell, I think, checks a lot of boxes that the Magic need offensively, but also not a strong defender. And so this may be a need the Magic are willing to punt. And it's not that they're not looking for playmakers. Malik Monk is a growing playmaker. He is not a true point guard, but he can create a little bit. He can create off the dribble. Was a great passer with the Kings. Whether that's a product of the Kings kind of speeded up offense or not is a fair question to ask, and one that the Magic are probably asking themselves. But ultimately, the question, and really all these questions, comes down to who the Magic believe in on their roster. This may be a point I expand upon next week, but at the end of the day, all these free agent talks that we're talking about, the Magic are going to go as far as Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner take them. If the Magic really want to get better, it's not about adding any of these new players. Some shooting would be nice to spread the floor, yada, yada, yada. If Paolo Banchero becomes a top 10 player in the league, the Magic will get better. If Franz Wagner becomes an all-star, not just a borderline all-star, an all-star, the Magic will be better. At the end of the day, the most important thing that Magic improved this offseason is their stars keep getting better. And that goes too for Jalen Suggs. Really, to me, when I saw, and Matt Moore notes this too, that the Magic might have a little bit more confidence in Jalen Suggs to become a point guard than maybe a lot of us do. And so the question, and one of the things I do agree the Magic have to be weighing at this point, is do the Magic already have their point guard in place? And it's not just Anthony Black. He's there too. But it's about Jalen Suggs. And I would say that perhaps part of what the Magic have to explore this season, because I don't think the Magic are done exploring or testing parts of this roster out. I don't think the Magic want to set players into specific roles. They still want positions to be fuzzy. The question is whether Jalen Suggs can be that guy. Showed a little bit of it in the playoffs, to be perfectly honest. I think the Magic did a really good job after game 2 of letting Jalen Suggs initiate a little bit more offense to make sure that Paolo was getting the ball in more favorable spots. That way he wasn't having to just kind of bang his head against the wall in the paint on drives. But look, Jalen Suggs is still a long way from a point guard. I want to make this clear. Just, some of the numbers just support this. He is essential to the team. Not denying that. Became a great three-point shooter, 39.7% from three last year, all defensive team player. He is an excellent player, and is going to continue to get better. But the Magic did not use him as a point guard. And so it is a great mystery and maybe a bit of a risk to assume that he can take on more of that mantle. Maybe that is part of the plan, is to give him this responsibility and let him go through growing pains next year. Jalen Suggs had some decent numbers that made him look a little bit more like a point guard. He averaged 4.5 drives per game, according to data from Second Spectrum, shot 52.3% on those drives. According to Basketball Index, he shot 66.4% at the rim. That put him in the 75th percentile in the league. In 2023, he only had 3.9 drives per game. Definitely reined that part in. Obviously, he can go a little crazy. His rookie year, he averaged 9 drives per game and just felt like he was, again, just throwing himself at the basket and hoping something went in. It didn't. Shot 38.4% on drives that year. Suggs is not much of a passer yet, and that's maybe the big thing. The Magic don't run him as a point guard, though, so it's hard to really know. He averaged only 2.7 assists per game. That was a career low for him. Only had 45.8 touches per game. That was behind Paolo, Franz, and Cole Anthony. Again, 3 main ball handlers for the team. However, his 8.45 assist points per 75 possessions from Suggs were pretty highly rated. And in fact, Basketball Index says he averaged 0.92 assist points per 75 possessions more than expected for his role. But again, he wasn't a point guard. And so as we look at the Magic's roster and as we look at what they're going to do, the Magic do have to sit there and ask themselves this question. Ultimately, what do we see Jalen Suggs becoming? You know, I think a lot of us recognize that the Magic want to be very similar to the Boston Celtics, where you have 2 ball handlers who are not quite point guards, but point guards. And really you have 4 players who are excellent ball handlers and can initiate offense. And then you have Al Horford, who's a great playmaker, who's a good decision maker from the high post, or Kristaps Porzingis, who's a good decision maker from the high post. Getting Jalen Suggs to reduce his turnovers, 1.8 per game, struggled with them in the playoffs. We're not going to deny that. Getting him to reduce his turnovers is a huge step to saying, okay, now let's turn that faucet on a little bit. Let's allow you a little bit more playmaking and creation ability. If the Magic truly believe that Jalen Suggs can get there, if the Magic truly believe that, then yeah, they don't need a point guard. If they think that he can turn those drives, turn that up a little bit, give him more of that responsibility and see where it takes him, then yeah, they don't need a point guard. That answer might already be on the roster. And it might be a reason why you go for a guy like a Tyus Jones, who can just kind of a stopgap option. He's a security blanket more than anything else. But I don't know if that quite gets the job done. I don't know if Suggs is quite at that level yet. And I still think the Magic need a clearer playmaker, a clearer table setter, someone that Paolo Banchero can play off of. And to me, Jalen Suggs didn't quite hit that level where I'm just like, give this guy more playmaking responsibility. In fact, I would argue the opposite. I would argue one of the reasons why Jalen Suggs was so successful this year is he reined in a lot of the excesses that hurt him offensively in his first 2 years. He was essentially a very high-level 3-and-D player. He didn't drive as much. He drove more than he did in 2023, but he didn't drive nearly as much as he did his rookie year. He didn't feel like he was going wild going at the basket. He tempered himself. And I think you can loosen those reins a little bit, but enough for this team to take that step forward. I'm not sure we're quite there yet. But maybe the Magic do feel that way. And maybe that's why the Magic are chasing after guards. Maybe that's why Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is an option, or Malik Beasley's an option, or Paul George is an option, or any number of players. Maybe Jalen Suggs is the answer after all. Those aren't the only rumors that the Magic have caught strays on. Oh, the Zack LaVine rumors are back. We're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word for our friends over at LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals who are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. As a job seeker on LinkedIn, I know that the LinkedIn format is really easy to use. Quick links to the company's website directly to the application. All of that is right there for me as a job seeker. Imagine what it's like for someone trying to hire. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. So take something off your plate and let LinkedIn make the process easier. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Here we are in the week before free agency, the week before the draft. The Orlando Magic are going to be catching strays. We are going to be involved in rumors left and right. The Magic have about $50 million in cap room to spend, assuming that Joe Ingles is renounced, or the Joe Ingles options declined, the Mo Wagner options declined. The Magic will have a lot of money to spend, and everyone's trying to figure out how the Magic need to spend it. In fact, the Magic do have to get to 90% of the salary cap. That's 90% of $141 million, or projected for $141 million at this point. And so the Magic got to spend some money. This summer, next summer is the summer to spend, because after that, the money dries up. It's all going to be tied up in Paolo and Franz. And again, if the Magic do go out and sign Paul George, get him to $35 million of your 50, you still have 15 to spend. You still got your room mid-level exception. Then your money's really tied up, and then maybe the Magic take care of Franz and Jalen. We don't worry about them next summer at all either. And that gets us to the next rumor, the big rumor of the day, the big deal of the day. Oh, the Chicago Bulls trying to get themselves out of trouble once again. Casey Johnson, the Bulls insider for NBC Sports Chicago, is reporting that everything is on the table for the Chicago Bulls, and they have been pitching Zack LaVine ideas to several teams, as many as 15 proposals centered on the two-time All-Star to various teams, including the Sacramento Kings, the Utah Jazz, the Philadelphia 76ers, and of course, the Orlando Magic. A lot of the trade speculators, a lot of the kind of trade rumor mongers and kind of fake trade idea hawkers, they have been pitching Zack LaVine trades all offseason long. And look, I think we've did a whole episode on Zack LaVine and why I don't think it's a good idea. But look, Zack LaVine does have a lot of the skills the Magic need. He is a spurty shooter. He is an excellent three-point shooter. He can attack off the dribble. He can play a little point guard. There are a lot of reasons to like Zack LaVine. The only problem is he has really struggled with injuries throughout the last 3 or 4 years. He's coming off another major knee issue that kept him out for a good chunk of this year. I think he only played played a little bit more than 20 games this season. He has always been used to being a star. And I believe he also has 3 years left on his contract that's going to pay him more than $40 million. So you're taking on a pretty big salary on top of that, on top of everything else. Zack LaVine has 3 years left on his deal. He's paid $43 million next year. A player option in 2027 pays him $49 million. That is a lot of money for a guy that you're not certain is A, going to play ball, and B, okay being second fiddle to a Paolo Banchero or Franz Wagner, and B, a guy who's frankly not reliable injury-wise. To me, this reeks of the Bulls' desperation to get something done. I think, if anything, what happened on Thursday shows us Chicago is, I think, a little bit more serious about resetting the deck. Whether that means they let DeMar DeRozan walk or not, I think is a fair question. I get the sense that they want to bring him back, but again, that's committing to being good again. It wouldn't surprise me, though, if Chicago is a team that does a fire sale this year. If you didn't know, if you've been living under a rock all day, the Chicago Bulls and Oklahoma City Thunder have reportedly agreed to a swap that would send Josh Giddey from Oklahoma City to Chicago in exchange for Alex Caruso, an all-defensive team player that makes the Thunder just that much more scary and deadly and dangerous. Josh Giddey, I think, going to a new environment, giving them a big ball handler, I think that will help them tremendously. His shooting's obviously a little bit suspect. He's kind of a bigger version of Markelle Fultz. But I think a new environment will help Josh Giddey. It was clear that he didn't really work out for them in the playoffs, but they think they're getting Lonzo Ball back this year, which would help them tremendously as well. But Chicago's not going anywhere. And it does feel like Chicago needs to start making some changes and making some adjustments and preparing to rebuild and reset themselves, because, their Nikola Vucevic trade did not work out. Worked out real well for the Magic, did not work out for them. And so to me, when I see this rumor from Casey Johnson of NBC Sports Chicago, it reeks of the Bulls being desperate to move Zack LaVine, that they are ready to just kind of hit reset a little bit and kind of give a new look. I think Sacramento is probably a better landing spot for LaVine than anywhere else. They're not, super into defense. De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis are much simpler passers. I think, especially since they're going to lose Malik Monk, that gives them, a free kind of a free in to move him in there. And I think he'd work really, really well for them. But I don't think he works in Orlando. I don't think Orlando is the right environment or team for him. I think that it's just too big of a risk for Orlando. They're just not at the stage where they need to be kind of swinging wildly. Like, you get one shot at this thing. You really want to pay Zack LaVine $40 million for the next 3 years? Like, Orlando's got flexibility. Why would they spend their flexibility like that? That's kind of how I feel on this, especially because you are going to have to give up some assets to get him. You can't just absorb. You don't want to absorb it. And it's like, that's the same reason why I'm a little skeptical about the Paul George thing. Is that the guy you want to spend your flexibility on? Again, both these players make the team better in the short term. Like, Zack LaVine, if he's healthy, makes this team better. I'm not going to deny that. The Magic need the shooting. They need the creation. They need that kind of star power sometimes. He makes the team better. Paul George, absolutely. Again, I've said this last week. There's not a basketball reason not to chase Paul George. He is exactly what the Magic are looking for. And if the Magic are looking to make a big splash this summer, go get Paul George. Just do it. 40, is it going to be $40 million? Probably. It's going to cost you $35 to $40 million a year to get that, whether it's a 3-year deal or a 4-year deal. Go do it. He elevates this team. He makes them better if he's healthy. Knowing this Magic front office, I don't think they're ready to spend that flexibility. I think they want to be able to pivot and not overcommit themselves to one idea. They want to be able to say, okay, this idea worked. Let's stick with it. Or this idea didn't work. Let's bag it quickly. Let's pivot into something new. And I think the Magic want to be able to pivot still and want to be able to kind of see where this group and this team takes them. So the rumors are back. The rumor mill's starting to spin. We haven't gotten many contracts agreed to. I did see a report that the Warriors have made a contract offer to Klay Thompson. They could agree to a contract anytime now, and take Klay Thompson off the board for free agency. But, it's been kind of quiet around the NBA. Now I think we're starting to see stuff pick up, and I think we'll see stuff pick up this weekend, especially as we get closer to the draft. The draft is a time to start seeing some action. And so I think we will start to hear some stuff coming up here soon. So the rumor mill is spinning very, very wildly, and pretty soon we're going to find out exactly what the Magic are going to do. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all phone based on a podcast to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us on Twitter there at @OMagicDaily. And also be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub. I am wrapping up my player evaluations, doing Paolo Banchero. That'll be up Friday morning. You can check that out. And a lot more great bonus Magic content over at the Orlando Magic Hub, patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. And as always, thank you for your support. Next week on Locked On Magic, we will focus on the draft in the early part of the week. We are currently doing the Locked On mock draft. We were doing it kind of offline. I will share my board, my thoughts as I've gone through the exercise a little bit. I am a little bit more organized than I was last year on this. We'll go over the results of that when it's complete. We'll also talk NBA draft with, I'm going to try and get a guest on to talk NBA draft as well to get you ready for the draft. And then, of course, we will hear from the Magic, and we will get to the draft next Wednesday. Lots going on, lots to do, lots to get to. It's going to be a busy, busy week here as the Magic will finally begin their offseason work next week. But until then, have a great weekend, everybody. For Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.